Good evening, classmates. My name is Earl McFarland. This video is for HIUS 512 discussion board on my project assignment. My research paper is titled Slaves in the American Revolutionary War, the Involvement of Slaves in the War of Independence. When we started this class, I thought about what topic I could write on. I just so happened to be on the social media app called TikTok, and this young man, I believe was a college student, was talking about a colony that was created for slaves that were freed after the American Revolutionary War. And I started to think about why they would be freed, and after a little research, I discovered that some were freed as an agreement for their service in the Continental Army or prior to the development of the Continental Army in the local militias. Now, I never learned this in high school history or any of my undergrad history, so it was very interesting to me to do some further research on this. I've served in the United States Navy for the past 21 years. I've always longed to serve my country. My father served in the Army for 22 years and other family members as well. I bring that up because African Americans have a rich history in serving in the military throughout history. And I've always wondered about the service of African Americans in the United States Armed Forces and wondered where it all began. Well, through research, I found out that Blacks have served in this nation on the battlefield since the battlefields were on our actual lands. Even prior to the American Revolution, Blacks served in militias. My research will start with setting the foundation by discussing the Revolutionary War and what led up to the conflict between the colonies and England. In this class, we have learned about the Boston Tea Party and the taxes levied on the colonies through various acts. Acts such as the Sugar Act of 1764 and the Stamp Act of 1765. There were some who complained about not having representation in England on their behalf, and that these new taxes were in a sense as if England was the parent and America was the child, and as such should take and do whatever the parent dictates. The reason for that foundation is to ensure, like, anyone that reads this paper that haven't taken our class, they will get the understanding of what led to the war, and then we can speak on Blacks serving the nation. I will then move on to a list of African Americans that fought in the American Revolutionary War. I will talk about Prince Estabrook, who was the first person wounded at the Battle of Lexington. I read somewhere that he was also the first person wounded, but I would have to dive more into that because most research I found do not state exactly who fired the first shot. They don't even know who fired the first shot, let alone who was the first person wounded. Another person I will talk about is Crispus Attucks, who was a Negro that died during the Boston Tea Party. So I would dive a little bit deeper into that. I would then move on to discuss the research I found on the American Colonization Society. I will spend significant time on this part. I'm excited about this research because this particular society kept meticulous records. So there are a lot of primary source material. The American Colonization Society was created to establish a colony in Africa called Liberia. The point of the colony was to make a place for slaves that were freed after their service. Speaking of freedom, I forgot to mention that that was one of the conditions for enlisting. Some slaves received their freedom, and some even got freedom for their family members, immediate family members, such as wives, children, etc. Some of my research will come from the American Colonization Society, an annual report of the American Colonization Society, volume 53. I'm going to try to get far back as I can. General Washington and General Jackson on Negro soldiers. Also, the Negro in the American Rebellion, his heroism and his fidelity by William Brown. Some of those items are primary resources. Some of them are secondary resources. But it's a lot of great information, and I'm glad that I chose this topic. And I can't wait to complete it. Thank you.